So I saw a very interesting post on the Truth Preachers community section. So YouTube recommended the Truth Defenders post, which was made about 2 days back, which was a statement of apology from the Daily Hustle Chris Network to Pastor Mukhuba, right? And Professor Mukhuba and their family and their members of their church and all others affected. And so that was what the letter actually writes there. So if you go to the Truth Preachers YouTube channel, just type Truth Preacher Enigma. The channel will pop up, just in case, sometimes it takes a while for a channel to be for it to pop up when you actually just search. If you just search Truth Preacher, it might not pop up because it takes a while for channels to really for that statement. Because if you say Truth Preacher, it might only bring up people that are preaching, right? So you have to type that, and then his channel will pop up. Go to his community section, you'll see this post. It is that particular apology. That's the header. So remember, I mentioned this thing, and I know a lot of people might not understand it, but let's educate each other concerning it. If you lose a case, you may be required to do multiple things. So when we saw the video of them in the church, we thought, okay, maybe it's done. But that's not the case. It's that if you lose a case, you may be required to do multiple things. So the apology in the church might have been one, because you remember that statement that I mentioned, to the client's satisfaction. You'll see it mostly when you hear about lawsuits, they'll tell you, we will pursue it to our client's satisfaction. And so number one would have been the apology in the church. In video format, a read out statement that Ganda did when they were in the church, and from each individual member of the crew, and then also this written format. And so I'm looking at it here, right? I told you where to go get it. Now, I wanted to add here another thing. If you've been within the court system or at the court system, and you see how everything moves and everything kind of like functions, then the amount of labor, paperwork, application for this, application for that, you'll realize there's even so much responsibility, even trying to do the media part of it, if you go there and you're trying to request certain documents, you have to have certain information before you can actually have access to that document thingy. You must state the company you're from or the organization. You sign paperwork. Like, you have so much responsibility. And even yesterday, on yesterday's video, when I was at the Zondo thing, you would have heard me mentioning, there were things that we were allowed to say as media, but there are things we are not allowed to say as media. So they trust so much to you from what you heard. So there are things you hear. Imagine, there are things you hear if you are in the court that you may not be allowed to say out of court. So there's such a responsibility as well. So you would have heard me making that disclaimer there to say what we can say based on the court's thing, right? Now, in this paperwork, what I heard reminded me of Revelation chapter number 18. I don't know why. I don't know why. I just remembered Revelation, and I'll tell you why I remembered Revelation. I want to read Revelation to you as soon as I pick out the language that I'm talking about, okay? Okay, they were apologizing that the information that was shared on the platform was false. They state out the details, and it was unjustified, malice, and defamatory. That was point number 1. And then as you go further down, it says categorically retract our deceptive statement and offer an apology from the depth of our heart, and so forth, and undertaking and pledge to not defame or harm reputation of Pastor Mukhuba and her family. Listen to this part, from making any or spreading any defamatory statement about them or on any platform. Now, that's the part that I want to talk about right there, is that you are therefore required, after losing the lawsuit or restricted, particularly with this one, you can't say nothing else about this individual. Anything. Like you can't question, you can't, nothing. Losing one lawsuit leads to a certain, it's like a death sentence. It's almost like a death sentence. Like you are bound to never say anything. Now, I thought that was, that's it. And by the way, it's not just to this lawsuit. I mean, like if you go back to Jackie Pamot's case with the Kumalos, it's pretty much the same. She is required by law never to actually talk about them. You become restricted to thinking. And in this here that you see here, the reason why I say it reminded me of Revelation chapter number 18. Listen to this verse. Revelation says this. Revelation says 18. For in 1 hour so great riches is come to naught. So it's talking about industry. So the book of Revelation is talking about industry and how industry was in loss when the judgment came over the whole of Babylon, right? And then it says the whole of Babylon is a system. Remember, I made a video speaking about the 3 areas of the Babylonian system. There is a religious wing, there is a political, and then there is a spiritual, religious, right? So here the business wing, and I made this explanation. The business wing is the enforcer of what becomes acceptable, either from a government perspective and so forth. And so when you read this thing, it says, for in 1 hour so great riches came to naught. So they lost so much. The business enterprise lost so much. And every shipment and all companies in ship and sailors and as many as trade by sea stood afar off from the system and cried when they saw the smoke of her burning, saying, what city is like unto the great city unlike to this great city? And they cast dust on their heads, and that's great mourning, and cried and weeping and wailing and saying, alas, alas, that great city wherein were made rich, wherein were made rich all that had ships. So all that participated in this trade, follow through, all that participate in this trade were made rich by thinking. Wherein were made rich all that had ships. So anybody that had business within this, in the sea by reason of costliness. Okay? And so they were made rich because of their association to the system. For in 1 hour is she made desolate. Rejoice over her. And O thou heaven, and ye holy apostles and prophets, for God has avenged you on her. So, do you hear what I'm talking about? There is this judgment that befalls the system, the Babylonian business system, which was creating such damage for the church, right? Which was creating such damage for the church and for its upstanding biblical moral state. Because of the moral state, you could not partake in business except you took the mark, except you were willing to be harmful to mankind. And there's a lot of people that are in business that are more than willing to partake in the destruction of people. And you remember, even the Bible says this. It says, and it talks about God's judgment over people that rejoiced over the destruction of the earth, or people that benefited from the destruction of the earth. So follow me here. So as I was thinking about this case and the case against Thingy, personally, like I say, it's something that could be dealt with doctrinally. That's what I've said from the beginning. Now, there are people that might just watch this video. You'll see them in the comments that don't watch to listen, they watch to comment. I've said this. Church issues are dealt with by doctrine. You know, when we become harmful, we should go the route of legal systems and stuff like that to protect ourselves. But church subjects are dealt with by doctrine. You see the apostles having to go to and fro about what the Bible says concerning how they interact with each other. When Peter was now starting to treat the proselytes as outsiders, they have to rebuke him and call him out. Hey, we don't do that here, right? And so, quite an interesting one. When I was reading this, and I was like, you know what? We must be careful of the Babylonian system taking control or entrapping us in a certain state of in how we see each other's thingy. Now, if you read the statement, it's like I said, they are required never to speak of her ever. It's like written down. It's now signed. Like at the end, it even puts out their signatures. It put out their signature, the Chris Network, Melusi Chris Kunene. It's signed, and then it puts the date. So from that date going forward, his platform cannot contain any statement concerning Pastor Mukhuba. Right? I go back to the verse. You will notice that the enterprise system, right? The enterprise system that took joy in whatever form of destruction that was happening upon the earth is in tears when this system falls apart. We must be careful of systems that do not abide by God's method or God's thing. Like I said, subject matters of church should be dealt with biblically. They should be stated biblically, and we should uphold to that. It's the Bible that makes up majority of our subjects. We have a responsibility to present church subjects by biblical confirmation. Why? Because there's a system out there. You can see they say, what city is like unto this great city? Now the city, remember the idea of that they've built this. It says them that have companies, ships, sailors, as many as did trade by sea and so forth. So there were people that had benefited from the systems. And we know that government will enforce the system. This legal system, right? The system governed by laws and whatnot. So government will enforce this, and it will have spiritual implications. But they became rich. They waxed rich. That's how the King James actually uses the language. They waxed rich, meaning the wealth, you can't even imagine it. And that's the thing with money. It's just there's never enough. You just kind of like continue. And so these people waxed rich off of the hardships of other people. Right? And so when you read that verse, you see the city can give you great power. You must be careful not to take the power of the system as your strength. Because remember, ours is God who's our strength. It's very easy for us to pursue something that we can come back and say, God, but it's the system. It's very easy to get into a system that we ourselves do not even realize. It enforces that. It enforces that. There's a benefit in biblical discourse. Whether we define one area of doctrine or the other area of doctrine, we're able to have those discourse because there's a joy in believers taking part in the bread of the children or the bread of the house. Lest we find other systems that become our arm and we share the same tears that the world shares, as you see right here. It says all companies that took trade with her. I don't know if you're getting me. Whichever one you're hearing, you can tell us down in the comment section. There is an area we should be watchful over when we see a system that is built to mimic the system of the Antichrist. Okay? Yes, we function as a society by these laws, but there are certain aspects of them that we must be careful enforcing on others. Right and wrong, definitely. We must right the wrongs. We must fix the wrongs. But there are areas we must watch ourselves. What's our trade? What is our trade with the system? Because there's a clear indication that to a certain extent, we will not be able to partake in the systems. There are trade systems that, as a Christian, you will be forced to exit or vacate because there are certain systems you will be forced to vacate. Okay, this is not talking about one industry. This is all the forces, all the systems of Babylon. If you watch the video that I made about the Babylonian system, the 3 areas of the Babylonian system, you will know what I'm talking about. I'll see if I remember it and I'll put it down in the description. It was a live stream. We did a full detailed analysis of how, because you'll remember, it says they cannot buy nor sell. So there's that trade aspect of exchange of goods that people won't be able to partake in if they don't take the mark of the beast. The church is not here by then. We're clear on that. Right. So I thought this was quite an interesting one, and I wanted to put it out here to watch for the system as it forms itself. Yeah, tell me your thoughts down in the comment section. So now I know I'm reading this video with a little bit of a parable. And there is, you'll remember that the word is not shared only is not shared in one format. It's like it's just it's not just shared in, it's not one-sided. The word can be two-faced. You can have a version of the Bible's message that is shared from a parable perspective, the meat aspect, right? And so it implies a bit of understanding of the Bible so that you can interpret certain things that are said and you can be able to see. And so I know that this video might appear in that mode, but if you read into it, you will see that there are certain things in this world that are very costly. They are costly. They cost a person of faith a lot. And the justice system shows that. Just when you're just there, you can see it. You can see how, yes, there's the good that it does. Then you see this You see this arm that's literally there waiting. I was watching a video. I was talking about how Elon Musk's Starlink is actually being prepared to be used by military and all those kind of things. And I was like, wow, the system is literally building towards its preparation for the Antichrist takeover. Yeah, tell me your thoughts down in the comment section. There are certain business trades that as a Christian, at the time of the Antichrist, Christians will not be able to partake in. Like the system will be completely enveloped by the system, by the Antichrist system, that certain trades are just going to be not for Christians, because they will become the enforcing arm of the Antichrist system. Y'all tell me your thoughts. I thought this was quite an interesting one and I wanted to talk about it. Y'all tell me your thoughts.